Okay, so let's start the discussion today. Uh, if anybody has any questions, I see only Nikhil online. Other than that, there are people from Collabra, I guess. So if anybody has any questions, I can answer these questions now. Okay, all right. So far, what we have covered is we have covered all of the EC2, which covers your load balances or auto scaling, volumes, all of this stuff. Then we covered S3, then we covered Glacier. Then we had the last class we talked about RDS. Then we talked about identity access management. Then we also talked about CloudWatch and SNS, right? About all of these things we have already talked about. Uh, Today we are going to talk about something called as Route 53. Okay, uh, Route 53 is a DNS product from AWS, right? Route 53 is a DNS product from AWS. So if you open AWS Route 53, okay. So Route 53 is basically a scalable domain name service. So what is, if you guys know what a domain name service is, you'll understand this. Or else, basically a domain name services, say I open a browser and if I type in google.com, for example, right? Actually, what's happening behind the scenes is uh, google.com is for the users. Actual communication happens on the IP addresses, right? So whenever I type in www.google.com, so my machine goes and talks to a DNS server to get what is the exact IP address of google.com. Then a DNS server says that say 1.2.3.4 is the IP address of google.com to my machine, and then my machine tries to contact google.com on that IP address. So all of this process is called as domain name resolution, right? And the service that does domain name resolution is nothing but generally called as DNS server, right? In a similar way, here Route 53 offers DNS service, right? So with Amazon Route 53, what we can do is we can host our websites on AWS. Okay, so what all it does is it basically does your translating. If you look at it, it is designed to give developers and to internet applications by translating name like example.com into the numeric IP address like. So basically it is used to translate names to IP addresses. Okay, and route behind the Route 53, you can have EC2 instances, load balancers, Amazon S3 buckets, and all of this stuff. We are going to look at that. Okay, you can use Route 53 config. So we are going to look at all of this stuff. The main unique feature of Route 53 is something called as different routing policies, right? It is basically listed here. Latency based routing, GeoDNS based routing. We are going to look at that, and probably during that time you will understand what we are talking about exactly, right? And you can also purchase domain names on Route 53 also. Normally, say if you want to host a site, you have to purchase a domain name, right? If you guys know, if you want to host a website, you'll have to purchase a domain name. Only then you will be able to host a website, right? So normally, if you want to purchase a domain name, the generic things people use are like GoDaddy. There are some other websites selling tools sites. They're going to use this. But even in Route 53 also, you can buy domain names. We're going to see how you're going to do that. These are some of the features. Latency based load balancing, DNS failover, health checks and monitoring. You can also register domain names. We are going to look at most of the stuff here, right? Probably then you'll understand all of these things better. If you go to the product details, it basically talks about what Route 53 offers. Okay, about DNS. It basically explains what DNS is, right? If you look at this section, it basically explains what DNS is. Then it talks about if you guys remember, we talked about something called as edge locations, right? So Amazon has some servers spread across the world, and those are used for content distribution as well as Route 53. So the two uses of edge locations are for the content distribution and for Route 53. Okay, so there's some pricing mechanism also. You guys can have a look at it. This is not very tough to understand. This is very easy. If you guys don't understand, read about it. If you guys don't understand, like I'll be able to answer your questions. Okay, just read about it. It is very easy. There's nothing complex in it. So without much further talking, let's directly get into uh, the the demo part of it, right? So you can keep talking about it, but it makes no sense until you actually feel it, what we are doing. Okay, so once you click on Route 53, you get a screen like this, right? Say if you want to purchase a domain name, the first thing that you have to do to host a domain name is to purchase a domain name. You have to buy a domain name, only then you will be hosted, right? To buy a domain name, you can use you can click here, get started now. Then you can click on register domain. Then what is this domain name you want to host? Say I want to host Collabra. Check. I want to say if I have any domain name on Collabra, right? It says Collabra.com is unavailable. Obviously, Collabra.com is already being used. Then there is something called as Collabra.ca. Then there is something called as Collabra.co.uk, which are already occupied. Say if I want something like Collabra.co, I can take it, but I'll have to pay $25 for that. The domain name is on sale. Collabra.co is on sale. If I want to use it, I can buy it, but I'll have to pay $25 for it. Right? Normally, I would not suggest you people to buy sites here because buying sites on AWS is expensive. If you really want to buy a site, I would say go for GoDaddy, right? Go for GoDaddy, and if you look at the same, we can have a look at same domain name here. Okay. You can have a look at the same domain name here. If I simply type in Collabra, Collabra.com is unavailable. That's fine. But if I scroll further down here, right? If you look at it, all the site names are about 99 rupees only, right? Instead of paying so much on Route 53 for buying domain names, I would suggest you people go ahead and buy a domain name in GoDaddy, right? So all you have to do is you have to select it, then it's going to ask you for the payment. Once you have done the payment, you will have a domain name, right? So what I have done is I have already purchased a domain name for the class. Okay, if I can open, right? So what I've done is I've already purchased a domain name. The domain name that I purchased was Collabra AWS.in, right? The domain name that I have is I have a domain name by name Collabra AWS.in, right? So what I want is whenever somebody types www.collaboraaws.in on a browser, I want this to be redirected to my EC2 instance, for example. Or I can also make the redirections to my load balancer. Or I can also make the redirections to my S3 buckets. Okay. So whenever somebody types in www.collaboraaws.in, I want this request to go to my EC2 instance. So that thing I can do it in Route 53. Okay. So one of the things that you can do in Route 53 is to buy a domain name. The other, what you can do is you can host domains. Okay. So for this, what you have to do is you have to click on create hosted zone. Okay. Let's click on create hosted zone. Then it's going to ask you again to create the hosted zone. Just type in what is the domain name that you want to host. Okay. And click on create. Okay. So what we have done is I have already purchased a domain name from GoDaddy, because otherwise, just to show you how to purchase a domain name, it's going to take some time. I don't want to waste that time on showing you how to purchase a domain name. That's a very straightforward process. I would highly recommend you guys also go and buy a domain name. It's very cheap. It's about 99 rupees. So go ahead and buy any site, any name which is 99 rupees. Buy that, and then you can play around with Route 53, and you can see how Route 53 is exactly working. Right? Before going forward, what we'll do is we'll launch a EC2 instance, because what I said, I want whenever I type in www.collabora.aws.in, I want this to be redirected to my EC2 instance, right? So for that, I'll have to launch EC2 instances. Without the EC2 instances, I cannot expect the traffic to go to the EC2 instance, right? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on EC2 and create an instance. Click on launch instance. I'm going to show you Amazon Linux AMI, configure instance details. I'll leave everything same. This is going to be my web server. I know this is going to be my web server. So I'm going to leave port 80 open, and as well as port SSH open, right? Because I have to log into the server, and then I'll have to configure it as a HTTP server, right? So I leave those two ports open from anywhere. Click configure and launch. Click on launch, and I know I have this key pair. So what I'm doing now is I have launched an instance in North Virginia, right? So I have one instance in North Virginia. Another instance that I'm going to launch is going to be in Oregon, right? I just want to launch another instance in another availability zone, just to show you how the failover high availability works at the site level also. If you guys remember, we have seen how the high availability works at the availability zone level by using the load balancer, right? If you guys remember, we have created two web servers behind the load balancer, and we were trying to access the load balancer. Initially, when the two servers were running online, my response was always going to one of those two servers alternatively, right? So when I brought down one of those servers, instead of my website completely going down, the one server that I had was acting as my only web server, but my website did not go down. So your elastic load balancer can achieve high availability till the level of availability zones, okay? But whereas Route 53 can give you a high availability up to region levels, okay? So let's look at that. So that's the reason I have launched one EC2 instance in North Virginia, and I'm going to launch another instance in Oregon, which is West, US West, basically. Right, so I'm going to select that, add storage, tag instance, config security group. Even this server is going to be a web server, so I'm going to add port 80 as well. Click on review and launch, click on launch. Right, and I have a key pair by name US West, so I'm going to use that. I have launched two instances. One is in US East and another one is in US West. Right. So now what we'll do is let's make both of them the web service. I just launched an instance, but I haven't made them the web service. So let's make both of them web service. That is, we'll log into those servers and install the HTTP service. So I have this machine. So let me log into this instance. SSH auth. Since will be coming up, I think it's going to take a couple of minutes. In the meanwhile, let's connect to the first instance that we have launched. That's in US East. Alright, so let's log in into this one. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to make both of these servers HTTP servers, right? So I'm going to do here, I'm installing the Apache web server. So I have done that on one of the machines. So I'm going to do the same thing in another machine. Okay. Alright, so this is installed. Now what we're going to do is cd/var/www html, and we are going to use the index.html. I normally use this file, so I'll say welcome to the, you can have any page, but just to make sense what I'm exactly doing, I'm having this welcome to US West Collabora AWS page, right? I have this in one of my server. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to do the same thing here. vi/etc/, sorry, it should be //, it should be index.html. Right, so this is going to be US East. I'm going to simply have 2 lines instead of 1 line, but it's going to come in 1 line, that's fine. Right, so I just have to easily identify, I just have a change in the page. So what we're going to do is we are going to start the service and both the servers. So I have started the service in both the servers, and let's see if we are able to access these servers over internet first. Then we are going to give names to those servers, right? So I'm just trying to access my, right? So it comes from the US East page, right? So let's connect to the second machine, and this comes from US West, right? So I have 2 web servers which are absolutely running fine now, right? I have 2 web servers and 2 different HTML pages for each of this web server. Now, if I don't want people to remember this IP address, I want people to use a friendly name to reach to one of these servers. So for that, we are going to use Route 53, right? So what we are going to do is, once you create a record set, you're going to get 4 NS records. NS records are nothing but the name server records. So what is that we are basically saying is, what is that we can input from this information is collabora.aws.in, right? The website that we have registered. This domain names record has been created in all of these 4 servers. These 4 are the DNS servers spread across the world, right? So what AWS done is, whenever you create a record set, it creates a record for your websites in at least 4 of the name servers across the world. Okay, so to have your website working as expected, what you have to do next is you have to take this name service, copy it from here, go into your GoDaddy account, click on manage, and you can look at the name server section, and you'll have to change that. By default, when you buy a domain name, it will point to the GoDaddy name service, which we don't want. Now we are hosting our domain name on Route 53, so we'll have to give the IP addresses of the server list here, right? So we are going to we have to give the names of the server list here. So we are going to use this for our domain names, right? So I'll have to do this. Then I can choose the next server from the details and names. Right now I'm able to know what I'm doing is I'm telling to GoDaddy that for my domain name, as I have purchased my domain name with GoDaddy, so whenever somebody is coming to my domain name, send them to these servers. These servers have record for my domain name's DNS records, right? So that's what I'm saying here. Click on OK. Normally these changes, right? These changes do take time, so we may not immediately see the effect, right? What is going to happen is, see, whenever I update a DNS record in one of the name servers, the DNS servers are spread across the world. There are hundreds and thousands of DNS servers across the world. So once there is a record change, to update in all the servers across the world, sometimes it may take up to 24 hours also, right? So the changes may not be instantly visible. So to see the changes, it may take some time, but the changes are going to happen. Okay. Let's continue with our discussion. So what we have done is we have created something called as Collabora AWS.in. So it has created 4 of these servers, and there is another, by default when you create a hosted zone, you get these 2 types of records. One is called as NS record, another one is called as a SOA record, right? So if you look at AWS AWS Route 53 record types, right? There are multiple types of records which we are going to look at now, right? We'll look at this. So one of the 2 types of records is, one is called as NS. So what is NS basically says is these 1, 2, 3, 4 servers where the record for this website is created. Okay, and SOA record is normally saying these are the 4 primary servers for, if I have a SOA record, what that is, start of or state of authority. So what start of authority, in fact. So what does that mean is, for my domain name, these are the servers which are eligible to do name resolution. Okay, so this will automatically be created. Now we want to have our own custom domain names. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on create record set. Okay, then what is the domain name that you want to create? I can create a www.collaboraaws.in. I can do that. If I want, I can do that. All I have to do is I have to select this. What type of record? For now, we are going with IPv4 address, and simply type in the IP address of one of my EC2 instances. Say if I'm going to do this, I have this IP address in here. Right? If I'm going to do this, for example, I'm going to click on create. So as soon as the synchronization is complete across the name servers, so if somebody is going to type in this, right? If somebody is going to type in this, right? If somebody is going to type in www.collabora.aws in, they will be, it is not yet done, so it's going to take some time. So what we can do is we can launch another Windows instance. I'm launching a Windows instance because this Windows instance is going to be in the AWS domain, right? So the records will be before it comes to my domain name server, because I'm in a different region altogether. So before it comes to my domain name server, if I want to test it instantaneously, the best way that I can do is I can launch a AWS web, one Windows server in AWS, and I can test from there. So for just for opening the web pages, I'm going to create a web server. I'm sorry, I'm going to launch a Windows server. I'm going to use this config instance details and storage. So I have a Windows server as well now. To get the Windows password, it's going to take at least 4 minutes, so we'll have to wait for that. Instead of waiting for that, what we're going to do is we're going to continue with that discussion. In the meanwhile, that Windows instance will be ready, right? So what I've created is a simple record saying whenever somebody is going to type in www.collabora.aws.in, take them to this IP address, right? I can also create, say somebody types in US-west, right? I can also type in something like this. Give me a moment. I'll have to have some water. Give me a moment here. Sorry about that. I have to have some water. Okay. So say if somebody is typing uswest.collabora.aws.in, I want to say take them to my web server in US West. Okay. And remember, whenever you have a domain name, only this is constant, right? Only your domain name is only this part is constant. After this, whatever you want, you can have it. This is up to you, right? I can have say www.collabora.aws.in. I can have ftp.collabora.aws.in. I can have say test.aws.in. I can have www1. I can have, this is up to you. This part is up to you. So what I'm going to have is something like uswest.collabora.aws.in. So what I actually want is whenever somebody types in uswest.collabora.in, I want to take them to my web server in US West. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this. Don't change anything, just go ahead and leave everything as such, and you're going to simply leave it as IPv4 address and without much change in it, right? So Remember, what I'm selecting here is uh, IPv4 address and alias no, right? So even you guys can use that. Okay, and don't change that. We're going to talk about routing policy and these things in a moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on create. In the similar lines, I want to have something for US West also. So for that, I'm going to create another record like US-East, right? I want to type in useast.collabora.aws.in. Whenever somebody types in this, I want to take them to my web server in US East, and my web server in US East is this one, right? So I'm going to have that here, and I'm going to click on create, right? So now I have three records, right? So I'm going to test it again. I'm not sure if it's going to work. It's only 5 minutes since we created, so it may not work from here, but let me try. Right, it doesn't work here yet. So what we can do is we can connect to our Windows instance. For this, I'll have to decrypt the password. For that, I'm going to choose desktop. I have Collabora here and US West. Decrypt the password. Hopefully, you guys have done this. This is how you connect to a Windows server. I'll click on this. It's going to download a RDP file. I'm going to click on connect. It's going to ask me for a password. I have the decrypted password. I'm pressing enter, and now I'm logging into my Windows server. Actually, if you give some time, these DNS records should be resolvable from your PC also, right? Wherever you are, you can simply take this domain names and you can type in. Oops, that was my decrypted password. Okay, I think this is working fine. This domain name is working fine. See, whenever I type in uswest.collabora.aws.in, it is taking me to, it is giving me a desired result. It is taking me to the US West Collabora AWS page, right? That is what we wanted here. If you look at it carefully, that is what we wanted here. And if I try with this one, let's see if this is also already working. If it is working, it is very good. Right, even this is working. Okay, if I try this, hopefully this is working. If not, we'll have to wait. This is not working yet, or probably this is coming from my cache, because I have tried opening that before. So probably it is coming from my cache. So what we can do is we can use this Windows machine and try to navigate to that website. Right, so it is working fine as expected. Now what do I want? I want to go to www.collabora.aws.in. Right? If I look at it, this is working fine. Now you have all the power in your hand to host a web server. You know how to launch a EC2 instance, how to host a how to create a web page, right? But if you know more how to create HTML pages and all, you can very well do that. Now you also know how to create a domain name. You can also host it on Route 53. So all of this stuff you can do, right? So what we have done is we have created some simple records, right? So we have nothing fancy here yet. What we have done is we have created only simple records, Okay, let's look at some a bit advanced. Let's go to, so let's click on create record set. Okay, all right. So if you want to, there are different types of records here. I don't want to go into each and individual record. This, we're not here to learn about DNS, so we'll not spend too much time about this. Say if somebody types in google.collabora.aws.in and I want to them to go to this page. Okay, so whenever somebody types in google.collabora.aws.in, I want them to be redirected to this page. That is where when you're going to use CNAME records. When you want to map it against an IP address, you're going to use IPv4 address, right? For now, all I want is I want them to go to www.google.com. Okay, so if I'm going to say create, if somebody types in this page, I don't know if it works so early. Hopefully it will. It doesn't yet, but probably here it will. Because this server is already an AWS infrastructure, so it should work, I guess. Maybe sometimes even this will need some time. It is going to google.com basically, right? That is what it says. Or probably still it needs some more time before these DNS records get updated, right? So basically the main important takeaway here is you can create CNAME records to point to other websites, or say even in your web page, if you have more than one server, right? So you can create a record and then you can point using the CNAME records. Okay, so there are other types of records like an name server, which you have it here. Then you have SOA. Then you have something called as AAA, which is for IPv6 addressing. And then you have something called as MX. If you have a mail exchange server, that this is all very complex stuff. If you have a mail exchange server, then you're going to use this. Remaining stuff, just leave it. We're not going to look into that at all. Okay, say for example, I want to, if you guys remember, we have hosted a website out of a S3 bucket, right? If you guys remember this, just closing all of these pages. I don't need all of these pages, so right. For example, I have this bucket name, something called as new AWS buck, right? This is a bucket name that I have, and I want to host a website out of this bucket, right? I don't want to use EC2 instances and all of this stuff. Okay, then I can do that provided the bucket name and the domain name that I want to host should be same. If I want to host this bucket name, I will not be able to do it. But if I want to host a bucket name on Route 53, I can do that, provided your bucket name and the domain name that you're going to use should be same. Okay. For example, we are going to create a bucket name, something like this: s3 dot Collabora AWS.in. Okay, so this is going to be my bucket name. I'm going to go with the US standard. I've created a bucket s3.collabora.aws.in. I'll quickly upload a couple of files. I'll add a file here. So probably these two files I'm going to add. Set details, set permissions, make everything public. Click on start upload. Right. Now we have uploaded both of our files. Now if I want to host a website out of this bucket, what I have to do is I have to click on static web hosting, click on enable web hosting and give it a error page and a index page. Right now, if I'm going to click on save, I just want to make sure the extensions are right. It's PNG and PNG. So I'm going to look at properties. I want to give the right pages so that it works correctly, right? So if I'm going to do that, right now I have enabled this. I've done all of this. Now if I click on this, I should be able to get my index page. My index page is nothing but one of the two files that I have uploaded. And whenever I try doing something like this, it throws me another page, right? So now my S3 bucket hosting is working fine. Now instead of somebody typing in all of this to reach to my website, I want to say create my own domain name. I can also host something like www.collaboraaws.in, but my bucket name also should be the same. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a refresh. Then I'm going to click on create record set. I'm going to say s3.collaboraaws.in because my S3 bucket name is same. Hopefully there are no typos here. collaboraaws.in. So there are no typos. collaboraaws. Okay. So there are no typos here. If I click on alias equals to yes, right? Then you're going to get a drop down. And in this drop down, it's going to display all of your S3 buckets, elastic load balancers, and all of this stuff. But somehow that is not coming. Create a record set. s3.collaboraaws.in. Are the names same? collaboraaws.in. The only problem with this is the name should be absolutely same. s3.collaboraaws.in. Probably I'm going to choose this. Okay. Come on. Let me use this name to create the bucket. Maybe I made a mistake there. So let's create another bucket. Hopefully what I'm doing is right. Okay, it says my bucket is basically there already, so that's what it's saying. So it's going to work as expected. If I'm not wrong, it should come here. So all I have to do is click on record set, click on S3, click on alias yes. Look at it, it is there. I haven't done any change as such. Only thing is I had to refresh the page, right? Now if you look at this, I can say choose this bucket name. Okay, in the aliases, it will display the bucket name that matches your domain name that you want to create. Say for example, if I want to create www.collaboraaws.in, I have to make sure that the bucket name that I'm creating here should have the same domain name. Okay, say I'm going to use this. Okay, and now I'm going to say click on create. Now it's able to create another uh, this one, right? Another record. Before going forward, let's see if this has come active. It's taking some time. If you guys have noticed, it's taking some time. So we'll test that in a moment. This has not come in yet. And now if you look at from my, at least from my EC2 instance, it's working. The CNAME record that what we have created to take us to google.com, that's working at least, right? Not everything is working yet. It will, as I said, it's going to take some time. But when I typed in my web page, right? When I typed in my web page like google.collaborate.aws.in, and if I press enter, it is taking me to google.com page. So that is what we created a record for that, right? We have created a record here saying that whenever somebody types in google.collaborate.aws.in, take them to google.com, right? Another record what we created was whenever somebody types in s3.collaborate.aws.in, right? It should take us to our S3 bucket. So if we do that, right, now this is working fine. Now this is my website. Just to show you guys that I'm coming in from an S3 bucket, that's the only reason why I have S3 in front of it. I can very well have www also, no issues, right? If I try to open some page, it will throw up an error, right? This page basically, right? So this is working absolutely as expected. Probably from my system also I should be able to do it, but I guess it's going to take some time. No, it's fine, it's up, right? It has already synced. If I try to access some page, it will take me to the error page as expected, right? Alright, so that is how your CNAMEs are going to work. Sorry, that is how your alias records are going to work. Right? Say if you want to host a DNS out of a elastic load balancer, right? If you guys remember, we have also created elastic load balancers, and to use the elastic load balancer, we have to check. We have given the link of the elastic load balancer, which is very complex. Right now, let's create a load balancer quickly. Let's create a load balancer. I'll say create load balancer, and it's going to say my LP here, some name, right? I'm leaving everything default, no changes inside. Next security group, going to use a new security group, probably that will be better because I'm going to use only port 80 here. So next, configure security settings, configure health check. I'm going to check on port 88 for index.html, and I'm going to reduce this stuff so that my website comes up fast. Next, add EC2 instances. Right now, in this region, I'm adding a load balancer in Oregon. Right? In Oregon, I have two EC2 instances, but only one of them is a Windows instance and one of them is a Linux instance. So I want to have my Linux instance behind the load balancer. So I'm going to check what is my Linux instance here. My Linux instance is, this is the reason why you should give tags, right? If you don't give tags after a certain number of machines, even with the two machines itself, I'm getting confused as to which is my Windows machine and which is my Linux machine, right? If I would have given tags describing what is doing what, then it will make it very easy. At least if I give a name, right? If I give a name like, say, tag like Windows Server, right? I will be able to at least identify looking at the name. And if this is my web server, Okay, if I do this, at least I should be able to identify it. And the same thing is going to come up here as well, but I'll have to refresh that page. Well, I don't want to do that. This is my Linux server, right? Right now what I'm going to have is only one server behind my load balancer, but you can have n number of servers behind the load balancer. Add tags. You can add any tags if you want. Just click on create. So what it is doing is it is creating my load balancer as well. Okay, and if you guys remember, to test the load balancer, this is the big link that you have to use, right? So let's check if my load balancer has come into active state. Only after it comes into active state I'm going to try that. It says currently it is out of service. Probably that could be because this instance registration is in progress, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes. Anybody of you have any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll answer your questions. Okay, in the meanwhile, what we can do is we can create the record set, right? In the meanwhile, what we can do is we can create the record set. Saying, say for example, I just want to show you that it is coming from Elastic Load Balancer, so I'm going to choose this. Whenever somebody types in elb.collabora.aws.in, I want to take them to my load balancer, right? So for that, I guess I'll have to refresh this page itself. Right, I'll have to create a record set, type in ELB and type in alias, right? And if you look at it, there is my load balancer here, right? Because I don't have any S3 bucket with elb.collabora.aws.in, that's the reason you're not seeing any endpoints here. S3 endpoints, you don't see any. But I have a load balancer endpoint, so I can choose this, right? I can choose this, click on create. Now if somebody is going to type in elb.collabora.aws.in, they're going to reach to my Elastic Load Balancer. Okay, let's check what's happening with that load balancer. It says in service. Now what should happen is if I open this link, it is taking me to one of the server in US West, right? So that is as expected. Now what should happen is with this configuration what we have here, if somebody is going to type in this, it is not yet active. I guess it's going to take some time, so we'll just leave that. But what's going to happen is it's going to take you to the, okay, it's working fine. Probably it's because of Microsoft that is not doing a proper search. If I'm doing elb.collabora.aws.in, it is taking me to the load balancer, same page here, right? So basically, instead of using this ugly name or big name which comes along with the load balancer, I'm using a customized name, a easy to remember name, right? So even these are all what we have seen so far is, these are all called as simple records, right? So for what we have created is, these are all called as simple records. When you click on create a record set, and if you create for testing, I want to have one more, right? So what I want to have is, I want to say an IPv4 address itself. I have two servers, right? So now what we are going to do is, now I'm going to show you how your how your Route 53 can achieve high availability levels till the regions, right? With the load balancers, we have seen, if you guys remember, with the load balancers, there is always high availability till the point of availability zones, right? But if the complete region itself is down, your elastic load balancer will also go down. But I want to have highly available website, so that even if one region goes down also, my service should not be affected. Then I'll go for something high availability in Route 53, right? So how you're going to do this is, it pretty much looks like you're doing it for elastic load balancer, but here you're doing it at a different level altogether. You're doing it at a level of regions, right? So if you want to do something like that, so I have to indicate that I have two web servers, right? I have one web server here and another web server here, right? I have two web servers. One is in US East and one is in US West, right? So one of them will be my primary server. One of them will be my primary server. So what does that mean is, until just closing all of these tabs. Okay, so what I'm saying here is, if this is my internet and this is my Route 53 here, this is my Route 53, and if I have two instances from two different regions, say for example this server is in US and this server is in Sydney, right? So I want high availability levels such that even if something happens in US, my website should not go down. I don't care what is happening in US, or I don't care what is happening in Sydney, but my website should not go down. That is my requirement. So I want to achieve continent level of high availability, right? So what I can do is, I can have something called as a Route 53, and I can go for something like failover policy. So in failover policy, what it's going to do is, normally when everything is fine, say it's going to always route the traffic to the web server is in US, right? Say if this is my web server is in US East, right? This web server is in US East. So normally when everything is fine, all the traffic will be routed to only US East. Say for some reason, right, and this is my say Sydney, this will be AP Southeast something, I don't remember the exact code, but for now we'll say it as Sydney. Okay, as long as this server is up and running, right, I am fine. But as soon as this server goes down, for some reason this server has gone down. We don't know why it has gone down. Maybe the operating system is corrupt or some reason. And the complete US is down for some reason. There are some power line failures, or there are some internet link failures. The complete US is down. So what I want to do is, whenever my primary site is down, I don't want my website to go down. I want the traffic to be routed to my secondary site, right? So these levels of high availability I can achieve in Route 53. The only thing is, you have to configure everything properly, right? So let's see how to do it. Okay, so probably I'm going to do something which makes more sense, right? I'll say probably HA, high availability dot HA dot collabora AWS.in, right? And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use two IP addresses of my two servers, right? So for my HA, I want this to be my primary server, this server to be my primary server, my server in US East to be my primary server. And in the routing policies, you have different routing policies. Till now what we are creating was a simple record, a simple name to IP address or another name to name. We are doing that. But now we are going to talk about advanced stuff. One of the advanced stuff is failover. Okay, what I'm saying here is whenever this server goes down, only then send the traffic to my secondary server. But how will Route 53 know that this server has gone down? Right? Imagine we are talking about elastic load balancer. Right? If I have two servers behind the elastic load balancer, how will the load balancer know that one of the server has gone down? If you guys remember, there we use a health check. Right? The same thing here. Even here you need to configure a health check. Right? So I need to have a health check configured. If it is going to be my failover, in failover you have two options, a primary and a secondary option. For now, first I'm going to create a primary, then I'm going to create the secondary. But if I'm going to create a primary, I will have to associate a health check. Otherwise, what's the point? Your Route 53 will never come to know that the primary server has gone down. Even though it has gone down, my Route 53 will never come to know about that. So for that, I have to create a health check. Right. So if you want to have a health check, you cannot create from here. You have an option here. Right. You have to click here. You have to go back here. Click on health checks. Create health check. Just give it a name. Any name that you want. Say HA primary. Right. I'm saying a primary. Just select the endpoint. Endpoint is what to monitor. We are going to monitor the endpoint. Endpoint is nothing but the IP address, right? If you want to, this is all complex stuff. We'll not get in there. We're going to choose this. So what do you want to monitor? Whether you want to monitor an IP or a domain name, right? What we are going to do is we are going to monitor IP address. So which protocol to check? I want to check it on port 80, HTTP port 80, and the IP address. Right, so this is going to be my primary server. So I'm going to put in this. I'm going to put in my IP address, and if you want to check a specific file like index.html or any page, you can do that. What I'm saying is basically for the health check, go see if the port 80 is open on this IP address and check if the index.html page is there. Only then my Route 53 will think that this server is active. Otherwise, my Route 53 will think that this server is down. Okay. You can click on advanced configuration. Basically, it will show you how many, how often it should check. The standard is 30 seconds. If you go for fast, it's going to check for every 10 seconds. But I think fast will be expensive, right? We don't want to go for that. For now, we'll go with request interval is 30 seconds. And how many times should it check, right? How many times should it check? Based on your requirement, you can choose. So I'm going to say 2, for example. So it's going to check twice, right, for 30 seconds. Both the times this server is down, the primary health check is down, the traffic will be routed to the secondary server. Okay. If you want to say it opens up index.html, right? Under index.html, if you want a string to be matched, it can also do that, but we don't want to go for that. Just click on next, right? If there is a health check down, if you want to be notified about it, click on create alarm. Then it's going to ask you for the SNS stop and go forward, but I don't want any notifications enabled. I just want to create the health check. So now I'm able to create a health check on 52.31.81.150, right? This is my primary. So now if I come back to my dashboard, now I have one health check and one hosted zone. So I'm going to go into my hosted zone. I want to create the record set HA, right? ha.collabora.aws.in. We are going to use an IPv4 address. The IPv4 address is this. I'm going to select that, and routing policy will be failover, because we want to see how the failover works and what type of record it's going to be. Right, the first record should be primary, or you can create secondary first, then you can also create primary. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a primary, and I have to associate it with a health check. And as I've defined health check already, right? We have defined the health check, so the health check is here. I'm going to click on create. Right now, it has created a a record for our ha.collabora.aws.in, and it has also associated a health check with it. Right now, what you can do is you can create the secondary. So if you want to create the secondary, the name should be same, because both of these records should point to the same domain name, right? IPv4 address, and this is going to be my secondary server. Right here again, you have to choose failover, and you have to choose what is it going to be. It's going to be primary or secondary. I'm going to use secondary. Right, for secondary, the health check is not mandatory. Right, for secondary, the health check is not mandatory. What I'm basically saying is, always keep monitoring this server. Only when this server is down, send the traffic to this server. But what I can do is I can say, keep monitoring the server. When the server is down, send the traffic to this server. I can also keep monitoring this server also if you want. For me, it doesn't make much sense. So what I'm going to say is, I'm not going to associate a health check with a secondary. However, it is secondary, it's just a standby, right? And one other important thing to remember is, I was saying you guys that one of my server is going to be in US East, and one of my server is going to be in Sydney, right? But you don't have to necessarily have all of your servers in AWS also. Say one of the server can be in AWS. Say this is my AWS infrastructure, and one of the other server can be in my traditional data center also. All this Route 53 needs is the IP address, public IP address of your server. That's it. So it doesn't care where the server is, right? If I want to use Route 53, I need not have any EC2 instances also. I can simply use Route 53 with my existing servers in my data center as well, right? So Route 53 just works on the IP address. You can have your servers anywhere, either in the cloud or in your normal data centers also, right? Depending on your requirement, you can choose it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to create associate a health check with it, and I'm going to create it. Right now, I have two ha.collabora.aws.in, right? But say if I'm going to choose S3 I'm going to just show you something here. I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to select S3 collabora.aws.in. I'm going to create a record set, and I'm going to use S3. If you're going to leave it simple, say I'm going to give some random IP just to show you some error here. If I'm going to give a random IP, and if I'm going to use a s3.collabora.aws.in, if I'm going to click on create, it is going to be simple here. Right? If I'm going to click on create, you will see that it says try to create the resource record set, but it already exists. So what is it basically saying is, you cannot have two record sets with the same name, but I have two record sets with the same name here. Right? If you look at it, I have two record sets with the same name here, but these record types are different. These record types are failover. The one that I'm trying to create is a simple, right? So this cannot happen. Okay. All right. So let's keep talking about it. Now I want to open this web page. I want to open the web page. Collabra AWS .in. This is going to be my web page. So let me try opening it on the other web server that I have. Right, it is working. The page is coming from the US East server. Right? I look at it here. Hopefully, even this should work. Right, it is working fine. It is absolutely working fine. Now, what we want to do is we want to test it. We want to test the high availability. Right, high availability at the level of regions. Right. So, what we are going to do is we are going to. This is my server in US East. Okay, this is my server in US East. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the HTTPD service, right? So basically what I'm doing is I'm closing the port 80. Port 80 is being used for the health check. So if I'm going to do this very shortly, our health check status should go into failed state. Right now it is showing healthy because the server is up and all, it is showing healthy. But as soon as it does the health check and it notices that the server is down, the status will change to unhealthy. We'll look at that. Okay, so it should change anytime. Just give it some time. It should change any moment. Right now it is showing us unhealthy. So what is going to happen if I'm going to refresh the page is it should automatically switch over to the other server. I think it's still coming from the cache. I think it's still coming from the cache. So what we can do is we can try it here. Hopefully this doesn't come from the cache. Even this is coming from the cache. So basically this link is down, right? So that page will not come basically. Now just thinking that it is down. Now let's close the browser here. Now if you look at it, it is automatically taken to the same link, ha.collabora.aws.com. Sorry, it is taking me to US West, right? Before clearing the cache, it was taking me to US East, because one of my node in the failover DNS records is down. My primary is down. It is taking me to the secondary, right? So in this way, you can achieve very high levels of high availability. Okay, you just want to read about it, right? AWS Route 53 routing policy. You simply type this here, and if you open this, it talks about it. This link has a very good explanation of what all the routing policies are and how you can use them, right? Till now what we looked at was simple routing policy, and we also looked at failover routing policy, right? So it also talks about how the other routing policies work here. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the rest of the routing policies. And remember, after you're done using your uh, Route 53, you don't want to use it anymore. Make sure that you deleted your hosted zone as well as delete your health check, right? Because we are not using, if you guys have noticed, we are not using the elastic IP address. We are using the IP address that is coming along with the server, right? And if once I kill the server, once I terminate the server, the same IP address will be given to someone else, right? And if you're still doing health check on their server, actually it is like you're trying to intrude into their server, which is wrong. You're going to receive an email from Amazon saying that you really want to do that. Then if you don't want to do all of that stuff, just delete the health check as soon as you can. If you don't think that you no longer need it, delete the health check as well as delete the hosted zone, both. Okay, if you guys think you don't need that. Okay, let's come back to collab.aws.in. Okay, so we have looked at a couple of routing policies. Now let's look at something called as geolocation. Okay, say if somebody is coming from Asia, right? If somebody is coming from Asia, I want to take them to a specific server, right? I have multiple servers. So I have multiple web servers. One I have dedicated for Asia. One I have dedicated for, say, I have 7 continents, so I have 7 servers. So for each continent, I have dedicated a server, right? So imagine something like that. Okay. So for example, for Asia, I have dedicated this server. So what I can say is, if somebody is coming, if somebody is typing in this domain name, or you can have say geo. Just to give it a better sense, I'm saying geo. If somebody types geo.collabora.aws.in, and if they're going, and I'm going to use the IP address here, and I'm going to say geolocation, saying if somebody is coming in from say Asia, right? So what I'm saying is, if somebody is coming in from Asia, take them to this server. Okay, and you have to give a set ID, right? This is just a unique identifier. So I'm going to say US West, because this server is in my US West data center. just to let me know that it is happening like that. And you can also associate health check with this one also, but I don't want to associate health check with this. Health checks are primarily useful in failover conditions. Right, I'm going to click on create. Now I have geo.collabora.aws.in, and this is going to route the traffic for anybody coming in from Asia, right? So now what we want to do is say again geo.collabora.aws.in, and again the IP address, but this time what we are looking for is, say if anybody is coming from US, if anybody is coming from North America, right? You can choose anything that is there. I want to send them to this IP address, and I'll say US East, right? Just to identify, the set IDs are just to identify. Now if you look at it, I have two records, geolocation.aws.in, geolocation.aws.in. Right now, if I'm going to open this page, geo.collabora.aws.in, probably it's going to take some time, but it's going to work. As all other things work, even this will work. No, this is not working because probably it is still down. So in the meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the service again, because for the geo I'm going to use both the servers, so I need both the servers up. Geo.aws Collabora probably it's going to take some time. I guess it's going to take some time, but it's going to come, right? So that is what is geo is. Okay, so geolocation routing is that one. When you select a geolocation from the routing policies, and when you specify that say traffic coming in from this specific geographical region should go to a different IP address or different link or anything that you think is valid for you, right? It's going to work like that. Okay, or say for example, I can also have something like let me show you something interesting. Let me show you something interesting now. Say I have this www.collabora.in, right? So is it working already yet or no? Okay, this is working now. So what I want to do is, if somebody is typing in, I will delete this first, right? Say if somebody is typing in www.collabora.aws.in, and if they are coming in from Asia, for example, again, and imagine this IP address, 221 IP address is in Sydney or Singapore. Okay, so what I can do is, if somebody is going to type in www.collabora.aws.in, right? I have created two records like US East and US West, right? Imagine this is not US East. Imagine this is AP East. For now, I don't want to create another record now. For now, just imagine this is AP East. Okay, if I'm going to say alias yes, right? And say CNAME, yes, and sorry, IPv4, yes. And now if I scroll down the list here, say I want anybody coming in from Asia should go to, we are imagining this as AP East, right? So if anybody is typing in www.collabora.aws.in, and if they are coming in from geolocation of Asia, right? If anybody is coming in from Asia, I want to send them to AP East, right? So I can do that. Say Asia, I'm going to put that. And I can also have another record set like www.collab.aws.in, and I can have alias to one of my other link. Okay, for example, US West, and geolocation and location will be based on your continents or anything like that. Right? Anybody coming in from Asia, coming in from North America, say North America, and just click on create. Okay, so the people will be typing in only this one, www.collabora.aws.in, but based on the location, they're going to get different pages, right? Have you ever seen opening a website from different companies? Different countries. If you open google.com from India, you get a different page. If you open the same google.com from a different country, you get a different page. If you open googlenews.com, right? If you open googlenews.com, if you're in India and if you're opening googlenews.com, you get India specific news, right? If you are in US and if you open again news.google.com in US, you get US specific news. How they are doing it? They're all doing it because they know the source IP address that you're coming from, and every country has its own IP address range. Okay, based on your IP address, they are able to determine your location, and based on the location, based on your geolocation, they are going to give you a page. The same thing you can achieve here. Okay, say I have a different web page for Asian customers, I have a different web page for American customers, I have a different web page for European customers. So I can have 3 different servers. Okay. All right, so let's go forward. I think I've talked a lot about geolocations. So let's go forward. And then there is something else called as weighted, and there is another thing called as latency. Okay, in weighted, say for example, I have okay, let's come to this picture again. The traffic is coming into my Route 53. I have one big instance, one very big instance, and I have one smaller EC2 instance. Okay, I want to use both of them. I know both of the sizes are different, but I want to use both of them. Say if I'm getting 1000 requests per minute, right? If I'm going to equally distribute the traffic, what's going to happen? Obviously, the server is going to crash, right? So if the capacity of this server is only 200 requests, and if this server can take 1000 requests, but still I'm sending the traffic equally, so what's going to happen is at some point the server is going to crash. I don't want that to happen. So in Route 53, I can to the routing policies, I can give weights, saying which is, say, if I want to go 4:1, every 5 requests coming into my Route 53, send 4 requests here, send 1 request here. I can do that. I can do all of that in weight policies, right? Weighted policies basically. Say I want to show you that weighted policy. So what I want to do is weight. I'm just using the same names to make more sense. Okay, I'm saying weight dot, when somebody types in weight dot collabora.aws.in, it should go to the IP address, and the IP address will be 52.32.9.221, and I'm going to use weighted and what is the weight that you want to give, say 4, right? And what is the set ID? Just the name, right? Just any name which makes sense as to what you're doing actually. So my 221 is in where? My 221 is in US West. So I'm going to say US West. Create. Right? So let's create another record set. Wait.collaborator.aws.in, and it's going to be weighted. It's not an alias. It's going to be 52.23.181.150, right? It's going to be another weighted. So for the other one, we have actually I think we have given 4, right? If I'm not wrong, we have given 4. For this, I'm going to give 1, right? I've given 4 here, so I'm going to give 1 here, and US East, right? So I'm going to say create. Now, as soon as this site comes online, it's going to take some time, I guess. But when you keep refreshing the page, so the 4 requests will go to the wait that has of 4, and 1 request will come to the server where I have given wait as 1. Okay, so this is how your weighted algorithm works. So you're basically saying you're basically associating preferences to the routes. Okay. Okay, then let's look at the last one that I have for the day. The last one is called as latency. Okay, you can use any name just to make sense. I'm saying latency, and I'm going to use IPv4. It's going to be an address, so it's going to be 52.32.9.221, right? Say now this time I'm going to go for something called as latency. Okay, if you look at this, it will explain what latency is, how latency works, right? Say if somebody is in, according to this diagram here, right, it talks about latency based routing. If somebody is in London, right, and if somebody is in London and if they are trying to browse the website, your website, which is on Route 53, obviously Asia Pacific could be further than the latency could be more. So what's going to happen is, for them, the traffic page is going to come from US West. So from the origin, wherever the latency is less, that page will be served. Okay, so that is how this is going to work. So you can say whenever the request is coming, you can just give a set ID here. Create another record set. Latency was the one that I created. Okay, latency was the one I created, and this time it's going to be the other IP address that I have, 52.83.181.150 IP address, and this time it's going to be another failover. Sorry, it's not failover, it is latency US East. You can give any names, any set IDs. Right, so we have created all of this record so far. Now let's go back to this page. Again, the same caching problem. I guess still the caching problem is the records are not updated, but that is how seeing the page is not very important as much as understanding the concept is, right? So it might take some time to see the page, but that's how it's going to work, right? You can have different routing policies. That is very important uh, with respect to Route 53. The main advantage of Route 53 is the routing policies that you can achieve, right? So this is how your Route 53 is going to work, right? Any questions here? If anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to take your questions. Right. So once you're done with all of this stuff, say once you think you don't need anything, you can delete stuff. Somebody has raised a hand, so we'll take the question. Hey Bharti.
Hi, Vishnu. Actually, I have a question that in Putty, you've done scripting. So I am not clear with the scripting and how it is related to creating web servers.
I haven't done any scripting. Right, I've just executed a couple of commands. That's it. If you look at the history, what I've done is the first thing that I've done is I've installed the web server. Right, in Amazon Linux, this is the command to install a web server. Right,
Okay.
and the second command is I'm changing the directory. I hope you are aware of this small cd command. Are you aware of the cd command?
No.
Okay, so get used to the basic Linux commands, right? See, you don't need to use Linux at all. You can also use Windows also, right? You can also use Windows, set up web server, but that looks more complex. This is very easy, right? Just execute these 3 or 4 commands and your web server is ready. So what I've done is I've installed the HTTPD package here, which is nothing but the web servers for me, right? So I've installed the web server package. Then I have created this page, index.html page, the page that we are seeing here, right?
Yes.
And I've started the service. Only installing the service is not going to start it. You have to start the service. That's all I have done. I haven't
Okay.
done any scripting here.
So these commands will be same for every web server we create. Will it be
Every
same?
Linux server, every Amazon
Uh,
Linux server that you're going to use, you can use the same commands,
okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, that answers your question, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's take a question from Nikhil. Yeah,
Hey,
Nikhil.
Ritu, how you doing?
Good. Go ahead.
Which is it possible that you share some common commands of the Linux web server that is most common and commonly used in the practical network as well?
Okay. I'll ask Collabora team to send you a mail with some basic Linux commands. Probably I'll try to find a link where you can find some basic Linux commands. I'll send that across to you, all of you guys.
Because it's not, most of the people is not familiar with the Linux. Okay, so that's why I'm asking if we have some couple of basic commands that are commonly used. So that will be
Sure,
helpful for
sure.
us.
I think that will be taken care of. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Vishnu. Thank
Rupesh has another question. Let's take the question. Yeah, Rupesh.
Hello.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rupesh. Yeah.
Uh, Up till now, we have seen about static pages, right?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
Route 53, we can
Yeah.
host any kind of website, na?
You can host any kind of website. Route
So
53 is
what about,
only to Route 53 is only to tell where to go, right?
yeah, I understood that.
Hmm.
So I wanted to ask you about what about database driven website?
See, if you okay, let me show you this diagram. Probably that will make more sense. AWS architecture diagrams. I'm just showing a basic architecture diagram.
Okay.
Right. So if you look at this, you have Route 53 here. Okay. So what
Yeah.
does, for now, ignore this. For now, ignore this block. Right. So what
Okay.
is this Route 53 is doing is it's going on top to the load balancer, which we have seen. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, this load balancer is going to talk to your web servers. These web servers are going to talk to application servers. Then these application servers are going to talk to DB servers. But your web servers are not exposed directly to internet. Right? So these web servers can run a database driven web service also. But
Okay.
those are not exposed for the public, right? Database will be behind. So Route 53 is just to do the name resolution.
Okay.
How you configure this from here to here is your configuration.
Yeah, I understand about Route 53. Actually, I wanted to ask you that can we get the example of database driven website in that session? Little bit.
We will do that at the end of the class. After, not now, because Route 53 is not related to that. Okay.
Okay.
So what we are going to do, probably by close of the session, we will try to implement the web server, the application server, the RDS server. We are going to build a
Okay.
website on that. I'm going to show you
And
how to do that.
sometimes we use HD images in website. In that case, we will use caching, image caching.
Yeah.
So it will also come up in that session or not?
HD
How
images, I did
caching
not
is
get it.
done?
That we are going to
Sometimes
talk
we will,
about it.
sorry,
We are going to talk about these blocks in the next, probably in the next class or the class after that.
content delivery. Okay, that's what I am asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for this, to understand, you need to have very good understanding of how caching is done. Otherwise, it's going to be very tough for you guys to understand.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you some basic information. If you guys have time and if you guys are interested in how caching works, you can explore it further. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if you guys don't have any questions, so what I would advise you to do is remove all the record sets because I'm done. I'm done with the class. I don't need this record sets anymore. So I'm deleting it, right? And I'm also going to delete the health check. Right. And I'm also going to delete. So make sure that you clean up everything after your session or practice is done. Because you leave everything on, then you might have to pay some money to AWS. But that will be very minimal too. You don't have to worry about it also too much. Right. All right. So if you guys don't have any questions, I think I'm pretty much done for the day. Probably we'll meet up tomorrow. All right. Do you have any questions there, Bhavik? Okay. I think we don't have any questions. So have a good day, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.